No, shut up! You shut up! God almighty, how does this happen?
You gonna cry about it?
In case you guys are wondering, a few weeks ago, a poll was held on who gets the most bitches. Now, admittedly, things didn't go quite in my favor, but, you know.
You lost hardcore, man!
Oh well. I didn't come in last, even though I got less votes than Earl.
Bitches, come on! I am into a classy kind of chick.
Personally, I don't care about some sexist and objectifying poll. I find that type of thing very tasteless.
We get that you're salty. Review bot. You don't need to lie.
I refuse to engage in this pointless discussion.
Is this what you guys think of me? Almost 10 years. 10 years of doing this series, and you really think I don't get bitches? What the fuck? Joe doesn't even have a dick. He doesn't even have a dick, and you think he gets bitches.
I guess the ladies love a tall, handsome guy with a sense of humor.
Yeah, you're such a darling, aren't you, Joe? Well, I'm sorry to all of you viewers, but this is the Professor Shadow series, not the Joe the Skeleton series. And I'll have you naysayers know that I get all the bitches. Fucking Genghis Khan has nothing on me. So if you want to try and be all clever from the safety of your phone and computer screens, then let me explain that I have ways of finding every single one of you who voted for anyone but me in that poll and making you pay.
He doesn't actually. He spent 4 hours crying in the shower last night over this.
You guys are such assholes. I work hard on these episodes.
Hard on.
I spend so much of my own time just so I can put out new content.
Put out.
Look, I'm doing all you ungrateful viewers a big favor.
What?
You're not gonna laugh at me saying favor?
Oh yeah!
Joe, shut up. You all at home better watch what you say. Because if you don't,
I'll crush you all down.
Weren't we supposed to be talking about Jaws?
oh yeah. Okay then. Jaws is a movie franchise that we supposedly were supposed to have 19 movies of by 2015. You know, now that I think about it, considering the Jaws reference in Back to the Future Part 2, and the fact that despite the modern era's obsession with remaking, rebooting, or continuing old legacy franchises, both Jaws and Back to the Future haven't really been touched since the 80s or the very, very early 90s. There have been a few video games, but no new movies since. Never thought about that, but those two franchises actually have a few things in common. Anyway, maybe leaving Jaws in the 80s was for the best because, considering how this series went down in terms of quality, well, just look at the reviews. Jaws 1 at one point had a perfect 100% consensus on Rotten Tomatoes, and Jaws the Revenge has a goddamn 0%. Like, have you ever seen a franchise that has gone to that level of extreme? If we were at 0% at Jaws 4, then just imagine if we actually did have 19 movies. With Rotten Tomatoes, they just start making negative tomato meters? I haven't actually seen any of these movies before the review, with the exception, of course, being the first Jaws, so this is a new experience for me. So let's see how this iconic shark franchise turned out.
Whoa! You're reviewing a whole movie franchise now? What are you, that Cosmonaut Variety Hour guy?
God damn it, Joe. Don't bring up that Crystal Pepsi drinking hack on this series. More than one person can do the same thing. I mean, didn't Your Movie Sucks and Ralph the Movie Maker do entire franchise reviews? Okay, and pause the video before you comment. Now we move on. Jaws the original is the most overrated movie ever made. Okay, come on. Gotta keep you on your toes. Nah, it's pretty good. I think Jaws is proof that a great movie can come from anywhere. This is just some stupid movie about a shark that eats people, yet it ended up becoming one of the most iconic films ever made. How come? Because Spielberg went above and beyond. I gotta honestly give a bit of sympathy for the sequels. They are essentially coming off the heels of what most people consider peak cinema. Spielberg also didn't direct any of the others, so those guys were quite literally thrown to the sharks. But it is like comparing a stick figure to the goddamn Mona Lisa, if we're being realistic here. The other movies just stand no chance in terms of quality. Spielberg's known as the man for a reason, guys.
I guess you could say the sequels jumped the shark.
And this guy is your favorite character. Seriously. There's not too much to say about Jaws 1, mostly because if we're being honest, basically everyone has seen this movie. This movie came out nearly 50 years ago. Like, what else is there to say that hasn't been said already? I suppose that could be applied to all 4 of these movies, but I feel like it's much more interesting to watch people talk shit on a movie than say the same praises over and over again. Jaws just kinda does everything right. The movie has a compelling and interesting cast of characters with well-written dialogue, it has one of the most recognizable film soundtracks ever made, and it's overall intense and gripping. I'm not sure if I'd necessarily call Jaws a scary movie by today's standards, but there is a lot to like here, even by the modern standards. This movie has such a great feeling of dread, and it honestly comes off as nightmarish in a way. I know all movies are dreamlike to some extent, but there's just something about this movie, especially the first half, that really just feels like a nightmare you'd wake up from. The characters in this movie are so good. Brody is such a relatable protagonist.
Want to get drunk and fool around?
Quinn is funny, Hooper is Hooper, the shark eats people, and Universal Pictures get a shitload of money. There are a few weird things, like how it's nighttime and then one shot later it's like dawn. The mayor's suit is obnoxious. I know that's kind of the point, but like you can't expect me not to comment on it. Also, this movie unfortunately reminds me of a sex offender.
Some bad hat, Harry.
Like, if you're gonna make your film company based off some cute reference, can you at least keep it in your pants? Brody should have tackled her to the ground for assaulting an officer. There's also a lot of weird sound design choices, like when Quint dies, they clearly just reuse his screams. Also, Spielberg can go fuck himself for putting this in the movie. I mean, it's a great introduction, but I was wearing earbuds, dude. This movie's just so cool, though, like with how everyone kind of talks over each other and interrupts each other. The dialogue's just so natural.
Hey! How many guys are gonna put aboard that boat? Whatever safe, right? Yeah, well, that ain't safe.
Watch it, that's dynamite. Where you been waiting for me? Where are you going with that?
This bite radius crap.
That is a big mouth. Look at
All I'm gonna stuff your friggin' head in there, man, and find out if it's a man-eater, all right?
And this scene, where they're on the ferry, is just such a great choice of scenery. It's such a creative way to shoot a dialogue scene.
Well, I think possibly, yes, a boating.
That's not what you told me over the phone.
Having this kid calling out for his missing dog is some really creative foreshadowing, and it's not something you may even fully pick up on the first time you watch the movie. Sadly, that just kind of confirms the dog dies, which I know is something that bothers people. Brody's reading the shark book and gets all paranoid at his son being on the boat, and his wife is more lenient, and then she looks at the book and suddenly starts yelling at the kids to get out of the boat. It's kind of weird to me that Jaws just goes past all these people to eat the kid on the raft. I know sharks in real life often mistake people on flotation devices for seals, but I feel like Jaws doesn't really have a preference as far as prey goes. And this dolly zoom, god damn, is this not the most iconic shot? This is like the dolly from Toad Stands By, but the only difference being is that people other than me actually like this shot. The only real genuine criticism I have is that this movie kind of drags a bit when they get on the boat. Obviously the scene where they're drunk and talking is a great character moment, but other than that you're basically just waiting for them to kill the shark. On a first viewing this is not a problem, but it certainly gets a bit stale on a rewatch up until the end. Also, speaking of the end, does anyone else think it's a little weird that we basically see no one from the first half ever again? The mayor, the wife, the kids? Like, I'm not saying the movie needed this super explanatory ending, and it seems like the movie ending the second the shark dies just goes on to be a staple of the series, but like, what even happens when they get back to shore? Do they just say, "We killed it"? do people even believe them? I mean, they don't appear to have any of the shark's remains with them. I feel like a lot of people wouldn't be too convinced that the shark is gone for good, seeing how public the attacks were. Plus, the first shark that was killed wasn't the right one, so I could still see people being skeptical. I'm just thinking here. I know in the end, none of this really means much to the movie's quality. As far as the shark itself goes, it's well known that the prop was a huge piece of shit that barely worked, and that's often why you just don't see the shark all that much to begin with. Personally though, and I know people have criticized the shark looking fake,
Shark still looks fake.
but I don't know, it doesn't look that bad. Considering how bad the effects get in the future movies, I think it looks fine. Up until the end when it does look a bit robotic, but otherwise I think it gets the point across pretty well. When the shark is just swimming, it honestly doesn't really look that fake. It helps that they used real footage of great whites swimming. Overall, Jaws is a great movie, and if you're one of the few people that hasn't seen it, then like, what the hell are you doing?
Damn, I never heard of this one before. Better check it out.
You gave a positive review in one of the most popular movies ever made. Congrats.
Don't be rude, you two. I enjoyed what Professor had to say.
Yeah, well, how many of you have seen the Jaws sequels?
I think I may have caught one of them on TV, but I turned it off halfway though.
Exactly. We gotta get through the good to get to the actual interesting stuff for me to tear apart. Yep, Jaws is one of those tetralogies where the fourth film fucked everything up. Just like Superman, Batman, Alien. But while those led to reboots, prequels, or just reinventions of the series in some way, or whatever the fuck Superman Returns could be described as, Jaws just kinda died as a franchise. So now we're gonna look at the 3 Jaws sequels. No, I'm not looking at Cruel Jaws or any of those knockoff sequels. We're looking at the real deal here. Jaws 2 is okay. This one didn't actually get too bad of reviews, and I agree it's very okay. My main problem with the story of this movie is that it's just kind of a retread of Jaws 1. Roy Schneider returns as Martin Brody, and this is the last time he's in the series, other than some archive footage. He definitely carries this movie, as he's basically the only character here that you will care about in the slightest, and most of that's probably just because you remember him from the first movie. The story is that another shark starts eating people, and Brody tells the mayor there's a shark, and no one believes him. So yeah, I get that there's only so many things you can do with a shark attack story, but goddamn if this just isn't lazy. Honestly, I felt mostly bored watching this movie because you can basically predict what's going to happen because of the similarities to the first Jaws. There are a few things about this movie that are pretty unique though. The idea of Brody being extremely paranoid over shark attacks, considering his history, is not a bad idea. But sometimes I think this movie takes it a bit far. Like there's a scene where a shark chases after this girl who's water skiing, and it's actually kind of ominous, but then Jaws attacks the boat, and the girl on the boat douses herself in gasoline and shoots a flare gun, which causes the whole damn boat to explode, and Brody's like, we must have a shark on our hands. Like there are witnesses who saw the explosion. Why the hell would anyone who wasn't the viewer come to the conclusion that the explosion was caused by a shark?
1 minute they were having a wonderful time, and the next...
Why the hell did you word it like that? This movie's dialogue and characters are a big step down from the original.
We've been over this a dozen times.
I know.
How much longer?
Until we find something.
I'm cold, bored.
What are you, 5? As I mentioned earlier, Brody is the only character here that has any depth. Everyone else is basically a cardboard cutout. There's this group of teenagers that show up occasionally, and they are just the most generic teenage characters you'll ever see.
Look at her.
Well, she got tits like a sparrow.
Hey, come on. Some of us are into that kind of thing. It doesn't help that the acting here is just not all that great. For example, Brody has like this teenage son, who I guess is supposed to be like a rebellious teen, who gives his dad a hard time, but he just has so little emotion in any of his lines, that it really doesn't come off that way. Like, just watch this shit.
No more sailing today, okay? And I'd like you to come back with me.
We came out in my boat.
Yeah, but Andy will take it back.
Got a date.
She'll understand.
No, she won't.
Mike, for Christ's sakes, give me a break here, will you?
He doesn't really sound whiny or stubborn, just kind of bland. There's also this very strange amount of pushback over Brody thinking there's a shark. Like, I get he's paranoid, but geez, wouldn't most people be, considering this place has a history of shark attacks? Honestly, if I had made this movie, and I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, but I would have maybe not shown the shark until later, and still keep it up into the air whether or not there's actually a shark, or if Brody really is just paranoid. I know the movie is called Jaws 2, so there's obviously going to be a shark, but at least try to play with people's expectations. The opening scene is just kinda weak, these two divers getting eaten, but then they have this shot of Jaws swimming outside a midi island just to hammer in that yes, this movie is in fact about a shark. This movie also just feels way more sanitized than the original. The first Jaws had floating limbs, people getting horribly murdered by Jaws, but this movie just has a lot less blood and gore. The only really brutal part is when Brody finds this charred up corpse. But this movie does seem to pull a lot of punches. At least the shark animatronic is much better. It's actually pretty scary at times. I also find this movie's sound mixing to be kinda distracting. I know ADR always sounds a bit off in older movies, but there were multiple instances of dialogue you could just clearly tell were recorded at a different time and location.
It's either a great white or another killer whale.
Well, I'd like to know which.
Well, it's impossible for me to tell when the body's like this.
I mean, I could be wrong. I wasn't there. But it certainly sounds like it. However, if there is one thing I kind of like about this movie's sound design is that there's a lot of ASMR moments.
Too damn drunk. That's what you are. Too damn drunk.
This movie is pretty boring and forgettable, but the climax is actually kinda neat. The idea that Brody has to save a group of people at sea rather than solely killing a shark is pretty interesting because it makes it far more complicated. I do find it hilarious just how many things go wrong. Like, this guy's raft fucks up, then Jaws attacks, then the boats crash into each other, then the helicopter comes to save them, and Jaws somehow manages to take a whole fucking helicopter down. And then Brody shows up, and he accidentally crashes the boat into the rocks. The way Brody defeats Jaws is, I guess, a little bit creative. They do establish the power lines earlier in the movie, but they do it in a way where it basically has nothing else to do with the scene, so you're basically just assuming that a power outage or something related to the power lines ends up happening. Which would honestly be a cooler idea. Imagine it being pitch black at night and everyone's stuck at sea because the Midi Island's power went out, so now it's hard to tell which way's home, and there's also a big killer shark nearby. Why the fuck are you calling for help? He's the one in the shark-infested water. Having Jaws get electrocuted is cool, but it certainly feels less impactful than Jaws' death in the first movie. Like, I feel like they wanted Brody to have those badass lines like he did in the first one, but they're just not as cool.
Smile, you son of a bitch!
The movie also just ends as soon as Jaws 2 dies. Brody gets fired as the police chief earlier, and we never get to find out if anything gets resolved with that, or if the town finds out the truth that there was another shark. I know the first movie ends pretty abruptly too, but geez, could this movie be any more derivative? Overall, this movie is not that bad. If there was no Jaws 1, this would probably be remembered as a decent thriller film, but obviously it's coming off the heels of one of the most iconic movies ever made, so I guess it has big shoes to fill. This movie's good for one watch, I suppose, but afterwards you're basically just gonna be reminded of the first movie and just want to watch that one again.
Honestly, as far as sequels go, that's certainly one of them.
The things these studios will do for a fucking paycheck.
That was actually decent. I would watch that again one day.
Oh, but you guys don't want a simply mediocre movie, huh? You want the real shit. You want some real shit. Well, I got it. I got it right here. Jaws 3D. This movie is honestly fucking terrible. I would say in some ways it improves over the previous film, but in other ways it's just so much worse. I will say I do like the premise of this movie. Instead of being yet another movie about a shark eating people on the beach, it's about Jaws eating people at SeaWorld. Looking back, you gotta wonder what kind of marketing stunt that was. SeaWorld signs on to have their location used in a movie about a killer shark who eats people. That would be like if Disney World made attractions based off the Abandoned by Disney creepypastas. Now, as the movie's title reveals, this was meant to be viewed in 3D. I watched it in eye-popping 2D on a laptop screen, so I guess maybe I didn't get the true experience, but surely this isn't a movie that just puts all its efforts into shitty effects, right? Right? The effects in this movie are fucking awful. The shark is back to looking like shit. They had a good thing going in the last movie, but now it just looks like a fucking plastic Happy Meal toy most of the time. And that doesn't even get started on the awful green screen and 3D effects. I mean, look at this shit. It looks like a fucking PNG file. And they're really proud of these effects too, because whenever the 3D shit comes on the screen, they just leave it there. Okay, get on with it. Still going. Still going. We get it. It's a fish head. Oh my god, get on with it already. I mean, even the opening titles are in 3D, because that surely doesn't look obnoxious as hell. Then we get to the story and characters. This movie features the son of Brody, and you know how I said Brody was the only interesting character in Jaws 2? Well, now we have a movie with no fucking good characters. Every character in this movie is so forgettable, and the acting's terrible too. You have this one guy who doesn't like water, and then 5 minutes in the movie, he gets in the water just to get laid. So there goes his only character trait. And then you have the pacing. I swear I felt like I was in a coma for the first 30 minutes because I swear nothing was frickin' happening. Like seriously, this movie is so goddamn dry and slow until maybe the submarine scene, and then it just drags on. This movie felt way longer than the last two, even though it's actually way shorter. And then there's these fucking dolphins. Like, what's the point of these dolphins? They just show up to look cute. There's even a scene where a dolphin shakes its head no to, I guess, warn the humans that Jaws is coming. And you know, maybe I could believe that a dolphin could understand non-verbal communication like that, but it still makes the movie feel more like a kiddie show than a horror movie about a shark eating people. On the other hand, though, this movie is significantly gorier than Jaws 2 and is closer to Jaws 1 in terms of violence, so I'm not even sure who this movie's for. The editing in this movie is awful. Like, watch this first kill. What the fuck even was that? Everything about this movie just feels cheap. The effects are cheap, the sets look cheap, the goddamn stock dolphin sounds from frickin' Zoo Tycoon are cheap, the sped up shark footage is cheap, like you really didn't think we were gonna notice that. So there's these two guys who I guess are trying to steal coral, and they're trying to be stealthy, but they just keep loudly whispering every 2 seconds.
Watch out, snakes. Oh, come on, don't bullshit me. Chicken. Steady. Got it. Come on, paddle. I am. I sure hope this was worth it.
Just shut up and do your job already! There's also this cocky British guy, and you just think, I bet this guy's gonna get eaten. And sure enough, Jaws in general is just way less intimidating in this movie, mostly because they show the shark way too much. If your shark prop looks like shit, then don't show the shark too much. But no, Jaws is fully visible in so many scenes. And Jaws just feels less threatening. Like, remember how he took down a damn helicopter in the last movie? Well, now Jaws can't even break through a tiny little gate.
What the hell was that?
What do you mean, what was that? You work at damn SeaWorld and don't know what a shark looks like? This creepy ass killer whale costume is honestly more scary than Jaws is in this movie. They also try and catch the shark so they could show it off at SeaWorld, but then the shark dies, only to reveal that it was actually just the baby shark. Yep, I guess there was just another big ass great white in SeaWorld this whole fucking time. And you just gotta love how Jaws is conveniently always there at the theatrical moments. Like people are having a conversation about Jaws and oh, look who shows up.
You talking about the damn shark's mother?
Wait, didn't this guy win an Oscar at one point? So then when they find out Jaws is in SeaWorld, there's this part where everyone yells at people to get out of the water, but no one can hear them. And like, wouldn't there be some kind of loudspeaker or alarm system to tell people to get out of the water? Like in case a storm arrives or even just when it's closing time? Seems a bit weird to me that SeaWorld doesn't have any kind of efficient way of getting people out of the water. Then there's this underwater attraction that has scary eels and tentacles that attack you. And later, a body of one of Jaws' victims shows up and everyone's like, ah, a body. But wouldn't they just think that that's another part of the attraction? Like, even if they eventually realize it's for real, I feel like initially people would be a bit skeptical considering how there was other spooky stuff at that attraction. Oh yeah, and apparently they do keep an actual dead body in SeaWorld. Why? I don't even want to know.
Hey, don't knock some skeleton representation.
Is this really the movie that you want to represent in your culture?
No, not really. Yet another movie that reduces us to background props for a cheap scare.
Look, it was a different time. This was before The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, but none of the skeletons in that movie were played by undead American actors.
We're making strides. I will say, however, there are a few cool scenes, like when Jaws is swimming through the tunnels. That's kinda cool, but you question how big Jaws even is. Like, if Jaws can swim through this tiny gate to get into SeaWorld, but is also supposedly this huge shark, like, how big is Jaws actually? They also end this movie on one final shitty 3D effect, because fuck you, we already got your money. So I don't know, maybe this movie was better in 3D, but I doubt it. This is just an unfortunate note to end the Jaws trilogy on.
I doubt 3D would have really saved the movie all that much.
Why did I bring these 3D glasses if the movie wasn't even in fucking 3D? What a goddamn ripoff.
Isn't there a fourth movie?
Oh, fuck me, there isn't there? God damn it. This movie is really fucking stupid. Like, it's actually kind of insane just how stupid this movie is. So let's see if any of you can wrap your head around this shit. You see the title, Jaws: The Revenge, and you assume maybe this is about someone's friend or family member getting eaten, and they want revenge on the shark? Wrong. The fucking shark wants revenge on the goddamn Brody family. Jaws 2 has this line.
Sharks don't take things personally, Mr. Brody.
And I guess the filmmakers were like, or do they? Like, who the fuck even is this shark? We have Jaws 1 who died, Jaws 2 who died, Jaws 3 and Baby Jaws who both died. How big is this family of killer sharks? Now I know Jaws 3 may or may not be considered canon, but still, why does Jaws 4 hate the Brodies so much? Is he a zombie shark? That would at least make sense and actually be kind of an interesting idea for the movie. Still stupid, but interesting. This movie also has the worst acting out of the whole series. Like, I don't think a single person cries with actual tears in this movie. Who the hell taught you to cry? This movie starts off bad too. It just irritates me and I'm not sure why. Like, we have this annoying ass son who thankfully dies very quickly. All of the blood in this movie looks like Kool-Aid, by the way. Why the hell are you screaming for help? I get he's in shock, but wouldn't the immediate reaction be to drive the boat away? The whole reason he was out here was to get this piece of wood unstuck from the buoy, but then Jaws was waiting for him. So, like, is the movie trying to tell us that Jaws intentionally set up this as a trap? The first movie established that Jaws was somewhat clever for a shark, but this is just pushing it. Anyway, the wife of Brody obviously doesn't take it well that both her and husband have both died. Oh yeah, and how did Martin Brody die? Of fear.
It killed your father.
Dad died from a heart attack.
He died from fear. The fear of it killed him.
Of fear. That is how he died. Motherfucker took on 2 Jawses, but I guess 3rd time's the charm. Anyways, for Christmas, yes, this movie is in fact a Christmas movie, I suppose. Ellen Brody's other son comes to visit and decides to let her come home with her. So Ellen gets the suspicion that the shark is deliberately after her family and decides to go with them. So you have a shark that you think has it out for you. What is the best case of action here? Just don't go in the goddamn water? Like seriously, just don't go in the water and you're fine. No need to skip town. Even so, Ellen warns Mike, her other son, to quit his job because she's afraid the shark will kill him, and his job involves heavy work at the sea. Then they take a ferry because fuck you, I guess the water's only dangerous when it needs to be. So you may be wondering, where do they move through anyway? A landlocked state maybe? No, they move to the goddamn Bahamas. Certainly the place to be when you want to get away from water. Then you find out Michael Caine's in this movie, and his character's literally named Hoagie. And also Michael couldn't accept an Oscar he got for another movie because of reshoots for this movie. But we'll get to that. I mean, at least the shark didn't say Alan.
Where's the lady who brings the soda? I'm too young for coffee. Can I try?
The daughter in this movie is so annoying. I hope Jaws eats her and she dies.
Professor, you may want to watch what you say.
Why? Jesus Christ.
Mon, what am I doing in this shitty movie, mon?
Then we find out that not only does Jaws somehow know exactly where Ellen and her family went by plane, but he also gets there in like 2 days. This fucking shark was somehow able to just know, out of every goddamn place on the goddamn planet, where the Brody family was going, and was able to swim from New York to the Bahamas in like no time at all. This shark just knows where the Brodies are at all time too. Like literally every time they get into the water, Jaws can just instantly find them. Like how the fuck does that work out? There's also this blossoming romance between Ellen and Michael Caine because watching two old people get the hots for each other is just what we all want to see. I like how that's the first thing she does when she loses her son to a shark and is terrified that the shark is coming for her next. Time to fuck, I guess. And not only can this shark just exactly know where this one family is at all times, but I guess he can just communicate telepathically because as soon as he shows up, Ellen gets this funny feeling and realizes that Jaws has found them. I want to let you guys know that this movie isn't like a spoof or a comedy, by the way. It's playing this shit 100% straight. So for some reason this is also the horniest Jaws movie. Like it does not chill with the sexual stuff.
May your sex life be as busy as your shirt.
I'll help you take your mind off things, sailor.
Don't go weak in the knees on me tonight, boy. You're gonna need all the strength you got.
I've always wanted to make love to an angry welder.
I hope not. I mean, I'm counting on a long, happy sex life.
For some reason, Mike and Jake, who's this black guy in case you didn't know. Anyways, they want to chase after the shark that wants to kill them, even though their mom is terrified it's hunting them. And when they find out the truth that it actually does have it out for them, do they tell anyone? No! They just let everyone have fun at the beach. Not like a killer shark with a hit list is out there. In fact, by not telling anyone, they're basically screwing over anyone in the Bahamas because there's a huge killer shark out there. What the hell, guys? So then Jaws just randomly attacks this banana boat. I know that Mike's daughter was on it, but for some reason Jaws just eats this random lady instead. Like what, did he miss? The shark in this movie may even be the worst in the series. I honestly can't tell if this one or the Jaws 3D one looks worse. Maybe this one looks a little better than 3D, but the design just looks like shit. Little Shop of Horrors came out a year before this movie, okay? This shit ain't gonna fly with me. We certainly get to see more of the shark in this movie, and it honestly just looks like a goddamn hand puppet at certain times. This thing isn't scary or threatening in any capacity. It just looks like a shitty amusement park creature. But honestly, even the Jaws ride probably looks better. Speaking of which, bring back the Jaws ride, you cowards. You fuckers got rid of that one and the Back to the Future. Oh, I guess that's another similarity those two franchises have. So anyways, Ellen steals the goddamn boat and tries to go after Jaws. Like, what the hell was her plan here? She didn't even bring a gun or anything. So Mike, Jake, and Michael Caine fly off to find her, and despite being in a goddamn plane, Jaws still gets to her first. Jaws takes down the plane, even though all of the Brodies were on that boat, and even in the water for a bit. I thought this was Jaws the Revenge, but I guess it's Jaws the Revenge, but also anyone else who happens to be nearby. But oh wait, Michael Caine's alive, and oddly dry for some reason. So they shoot lights at Jaws, and then this happens. Jaws roars now. He fucking roars. Why would a shark need to roar? I guess the first Jaws maybe had a roar in it, but I don't know. That could have been anything. This is very clearly a roar. And then of course this movie couldn't resist getting the black guy killed. Again, not on Jaws' apparent hit list, but whatever. And then Ellen gets these memories of Mike dying and Martin shooting the first Jaws, but like she wasn't there for either of these events. How the hell does she have flashbacks of them? She stabs Jaws with the boat Ursula style, and Jaws just explodes. And not only that, but his explosion is so powerful that it demolished the whole goddamn boat. Oh, and Jake is apparently still alive too. For a shark named Jaws, who can literally bite through wood and metal, he sure didn't try to kill that one guy. What, is he a racist shark that doesn't like the taste of black people? Honestly, I wouldn't put it past them to make a racist Jaws movie if this one didn't tank the whole franchise. So you may be wondering what's worse, this or Jaws 3D? Well, I think Jaws 3 is probably the better movie just because of how absolutely batshit this movie's story is, but in terms of which one I like more, this one by far. This movie is fucking hilarious. Jaws 3D honestly bored the hell out of me other than the shitty effects, but this movie, oh my god, this movie is the best kind of train wreck. However, outside of the insane plot, is this movie really that bad? Honestly, I'm not sure. For one thing, this is a very pretty movie. It helps it was shot in a beautiful tropical area, but I have to say this is not a bad looking movie cinematography wise, especially with the emphasis on the blue water and skies. This is not a badly shot movie. In terms of dialogue, I'd say it's basically on par with Jaws 3, but character wise, I do think this movie does it a bit better. While these aren't by any means great characters, they do try to flesh them out to an extent and make us care about them. Maybe not particularly well, but at least they tried, unlike the last one. Anyways, I should mention that this movie has two different endings. When I mentioned those reshoots earlier, yeah, those were done after the movie was released. Originally, Jake stayed dead, and Jaws died from getting skewered on the boat instead of exploding, which is honestly a way better ending. So not only did they screw Michael Caine for this reshoot, but the reshoot didn't even improve the movie in any capacity. This is certainly one of the worst big-budget Hollywood films ever made. I can't really say it's one of the worst of all time because there are probably hundreds of indie and TV movies that are worse. Hell, this is probably not even the worst shark movie, but considering the movie that was coming off of, this is a pretty low fall from grace. Ironically, the guy who played Jake would go on to direct a movie about the USS Indianapolis, you know, the same boat that Quint from Jaws 1 survived. This movie is awful, but at least it was entertaining, unlike Jaws 3D. So if I were to rank the movies from best to worst by quality, I would probably just go in order of release, but in terms of enjoyment, I'd say Jaws 1, 2, 4, and then 3. Now please, do me a favor and keep this franchise dead.
Yeah, that's probably for the best. What would Jaws 5 even be about?
Maybe some kind of porno.
I'm sure something like that already existed. Don't underestimate the internet.
So we finally reviewed a whole franchise. I'm interested to know what other franchises we could review. But not something like James Bond where there's like 20 fucking movies. We gotta work up to that.
Maybe you get more bitches if you reviewed a long franchise.
Don't even bring that up again.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain. For we've received orders for to sail back to Boston. And so never more shall we see you again.